Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take complex source material, pro stats, tech reviews, deep research, and just cut straight to the knowledge you need.
Exactly.
Today we're strapping in for a really high-speed tour of the professional esports hardware scene.
Yeah, we're moving way beyond just, flashy RGB lights.
Oh yeah. We are going to dissect the two key peripherals that really dictate precision in games like Counter-Strike 2 and Valorant. We're talking about the gaming mouse and its often underestimated partner, the Mousepad.
And our mission for this is really specific. We've been digging into usage statistics from thousands of professional players with data as recent as January 2026.
So this is fresh.
It's very fresh, and we're using it to define the technical standards for top-tier competitive play right now. We're not just reading the specs on the box, we're figuring out what the pros are actually using day in, day out.
And what we found is this fascinating contradiction. On one hand, you have this just ferocious technical arms race between manufacturers, and it seems to be driven by three things. This obsession with ultra-lightweight, the race for basically zero wireless latency, and the surprisingly crucial physics of all things surface friction.
But on the other hand, you've got the pros themselves.
Yeah.
And they often just ignore the newest, shiniest tech if an older, proven design just feels better or is more reliable. It's this battle between peak innovation and, perfect muscle memory.
Okay, let's unpack that first point then, the mouse meta. If you look at tactical shooters, the trend is it's just relentless. Lighter is better.
Absolutely. The big brands, Razer, Logitech, COAE, they're all fighting to shed every single gram. We usually define ultralight as anything under 80 grams, but today's top wireless mice they're routinely dropping below 65 grams.
We're talking about some pretty extreme weight reduction. What does that 65 gram target actually feel like in your hand?
It's all about low inertia.
Yeah.
Think of inertia as the resistance to change, right? A heavy mouse takes more force to get moving and more force to stop. When you drop below 60 grams, and we've seen mice like the Fnatic X Slam Zoom IX get down to just 47 grams, you have almost zero inertia. This means the time between your brain saying stop and the cursor actually stopping on screen it's almost instant.
And that's key for those tiny micro adjustments and emergency flicks.
It's crucial. So if lightness is the physical side, what about the technical pillars? The first critical metric is the polling rate, measured in hertz.
Right, that's how often the mouse is talking to the PC.
Exactly. For decades, 1,000 hertz was the standard, 1,000 times a second. But now, we are firmly in the age of 8 kilohertz.
8,000 times a second. That just sounds like a massive leap.
It is. We're seeing 8 kilohertz as the new competitive benchmark in mice like the Razer Viper V3 Pro. And the real impact there is latency reduction. High-end wireless tech like Razer's Hyperspeed can get average latencies down to as low as 0.29 milliseconds.
Okay, but hold on. Is that really the deciding factor? Reducing latency from, say, 2 milliseconds down to 0.29. Can a human being actually notice that difference in a game?
That is the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And honestly, some of our sources suggest that while it's a measurable improvement on paper, the human eye and nervous system really struggle to perceive differences that small below a millisecond.
Right.
And what is definitely not negligible is the trade-off. Pushing a mouse to a port 8,000 times a second just crushes your battery.
I bet.
Yeah, which is why 4K hertz is often recommended for most people.
Yeah.
It's a much, much better balance between that top-end responsiveness and, not having your mouse die mid-match.
Okay, so the second metric is the sensor. DPI, CTI, the numbers here are just getting ridiculous. I see 45,000 DPI.
And that's where we need to bring in a key insight for you. Those huge DPI numbers are, for competitive play, mostly just marketing. Pros don't use high DPI.
They use low DPI for accuracy.
Exactly. What really matters is consistent tracking and high IPS inches per second.
Okay, explain the difference. Why does IPS matter more than that big DPI number on the box?
So IPS is the measure of how fast you can physically move the mouse and still have the sensor track everything perfectly. Imagine you're in a panic situation in CS2. An enemy is behind you. You would just violently flick your mouse across the whole mouse pad.
Yeah, we've all done that.
Right. If the IPS rating is too low, the sensor just gives up. It stops tracking, and your movement is lost. Flagship sensors, like the Razer Focus Pro, have incredibly high IPS, over 750, making sure that no matter how fast you move, the cursor maintains perfect one-to-one accuracy. That stability is everything.
Got it. And the final piece of the puzzle, the switches, the things you actually click.
Yeah, and we've seen a really clear industry shift here. Away from traditional mechanical switches and toward optical or hybrid switches, like Razer's optical or Logitech's LifeForce. force.
And that's not just about speed.
The speed is part of it. They register clicks faster. But the real gain is durability. Mechanical switches can, over time, develop that dreaded double-clicking issue.
Which is a complete disaster in a clutch moment.
A total disaster. Optical switches remove that physical contact, so their lifespan is just massively increased. We're talking 80 million clicks or more.
It gives pros confidence that their gear just isn't going to fail.
Okay, so we've got the benchmark. Under 65 grams, 8 kilohertz polling, high IPS sensor, optical switches. But here's that paradox we mentioned. Despite all this insane innovation, one mouse that meets basically none of those specs is still massively popular. The original Logitech G Pro X Superlight, the GPX.
It's the ghost in the machine. It really is. The original GPX is 62 grams. Still light, but not the lightest. It uses older mechanical switches and only pulls at 1,000 hertz, 7 times slower than the new standard.
And yet,
across all pro usage stats from this year, it's used by over 12% of all pros, almost 10% in CS2 alone.
It's the industry standard, even though the industry's tech has moved on. How does that even work?
It's because comfort and reliability will trump raw specs when the stakes are that high. The GPX's shape, people call it the potato shape. It's an extremely safe, medium-sized, symmetrical design that just fits a massive range of hands and grips. So it just works.
It works. It was reliable. The firmware was proven. It never failed. For a pro, the risk of switching to a slightly faster mouse with a slightly different shape and throwing off years of muscle memory, it's just not worth that tiny gain. Consistency is the real advantage.
That brings us perfectly into shape and grip, because that's really more important than max DPI, isn't it? The mouse has to feel like it's part of your body.
Exactly. The human element is critical. We can break down how people hold the mouse into 3 main grip styles, and a truly great mouse is built specifically for one of them.
Okay, let's start with the most relaxed one, the palm grip.
With a palm grip, your entire hand, fingers, and palm is resting on the mouse. It gives you full support. This style really favors those ergonomic larger shapes, like the ZOE EC series or the Razer Death Adder.
Great for stability.
Fantastic for stability and tracking, but it does limit your fine movements to mostly your wrist movements.
Okay, moving on to the claw grip.
This is where it gets interesting for tactical shooters. Claw grip uses curled fingers, and only the back of your palm rests on the mouse. It's a balance of stability and flexibility.
How so?
Because your fingers are curled, you can use them for tiny, vertical micro adjustments. That's essential when you're tracking a target moving up and down stairs, for example. The ZOA EC2 CW is perfect for this. Its curved back gives you that anchor point for stability, but leaves the fingers free.
And the fastest, most precise style, fingertip grip.
Yeah, this is maximum control using only your fingertips. The palm is completely off the mouse. This demands the smallest, lightest, most symmetrical designs out there, like the HyperX Pulsefire Haze 2 Mini. It offers just unparalleled precision for small movements, but it's also the most tiring style over long sessions.
You mentioned ZOE, and their whole design philosophy is fascinating because they seem to actively choose not to chase that ultralight high-spec meta.
They are the anti-meta specialists, and yet they are still incredibly popular in CS2. ZOE's focus is on stability and simple, driverless, plug-and-play use. The EZ2CW we mentioned, it weighs 77 grams. That's heavy today. It uses an older sensor.
So what are they prioritizing?
A tank-like build quality and a shape that's been refined for a decade. Pros who value absolute stability over that last millisecond of speed often lean into that philosophy.
And they also have symmetrical options for the claw and fingertip players, right?
Yes, and their symmetrical mice come in different height profiles. The FK series is lower with less palm support for pure fingertip players. The ZA series has a higher hump at the back for people who want a little bit of that palm contact with the symmetrical shell. It just proves the point. Choose the shape for your style first, then worry about the specs.
Okay, we focus entirely on the mouse, but if the mouse is the sports car, the Mousepad is the racetrack. The best sensor in the world is useless without the right surface.
We're moving from electronics into, like, the physics of textile engineering now. The Mousepad is where that crucial balance of speed versus stopping power gets decided. And if you look at high-end brands like Artisan, you can perfectly see the 2 main categories.
So tell us about the SpeedPad.
A SpeedPad is all about minimizing friction, specifically static friction, the force you need to get the mouse moving from a dead stop.
Okay.
SpeedPads like the Artisan High and Soft, they feel effortless. The benefit is making those big sweeping aim adjustments really fast. The challenge is stopping accurately. The Huion is so popular because it has a quick glide, but somehow still has really good stopping power, letting you flick and still stop on a dime.
And on the other end, the control pad.
A control pad does the opposite. It maximizes texture and surface drag to give you the most precision and stopping power possible, even if it feels a bit slower. Think of the SteelSeries QK Heavy with its dense micro-woven cloth. Or the other big one right now, the lethal gaming gear Saturn Pro.
The Saturn Pro seems to be everywhere in the competitive scene.
It is. It's a control medium pad that gets compared a lot to the legendary Artisan Zero. And what's interesting isn't just the surface material, but the base underneath. The Saturn Pro offers different hardness options, firm, soft, X-soft, because the density of the foam base actually changes how much your mouse feet sink in, which affects the friction.
That is an obsessive level of detail.
It is, but that's what pros demand. Which leads us to the really surprising real-world flaw you found, the mousepad scale.
Yes, this is where ideal engineering collides with, well, reality. Despite pros buying these incredibly precise surfaces, they're often seen using pads that have a basic physical flaw. They don't quite flat.
Seriously,
Yes.
just curling issues.
Absolutely. Pads that get shipped tightly rolled up, like the ZOE GSR, they often want to return to that coiled shape. This creates these tiny hills and valleys on the surface, which completely ruin sensor consistency.
That would drive me insane.
Well, sources say users are resorting to, truly desperate measures. They're stacking heavy books on the pad every night. Some people are even ironing their mouse pads to try and thermally force them to lay flat.
You're kidding. Ironing a $100 mouse pad.
Like a wrinkled shirt. It just highlights how critical that perfect flatness is. The simplest physical requirement is often the hardest problem to solve.
Wow. Okay, let's bring this all together. We've covered the tech, the shapes, the surfaces. Looking at the data from thousands of pros in CS2 and Valorant, what's the final picture?
The summary is that ultralight, low-latency wireless completely dominates the rankings. The top 3 most used mice among over 2,000 pros are the Razer Viper V3 Pro, the Logitech G Pro X Superlight 2, and the original G Pro X Superlight.
And that list just perfectly captures the split personality of the market, doesn't it?
It really does. The Viper V3 Pro is the new benchmark.
Right. It's setting the standard. 54 grams, 8 kilohertz bowling right out of the box, ambidextrous shape. Then you have the Superlight 2, which is the evolution of the Pro's Choice, 59 grams, also 8 kilohertz bowling, with keeping that beloved safe shape. And then the original GPX, the legacy model that just won't quit.
And we shouldn't forget, those ergonomic specialists are still out there.
Not at all. They don't top the raw numbers, but the ergonomic shapes from Zui and Vaxi are still very, very common among CS2 players who put stability and comfort above everything else. It just proves there's no single perfect mouse. There's only the mouse that is perfect for your hand.
So if you're listening and looking to optimize your own setup, what are the 3 big takeaways from all this?
First, and this is the most important, grip dictates shape. Before you even look at DPI or polling rate, you have to figure out your grip style, palm, claw, or fingertip, and then choose a mouse built for it. Shape is the foundation of all consistency.
Okay, number 2.
Optimize your settings, not just your hardware. Hardware is useless if your software is fighting you. Use raw input in your games and immediately disable mouse acceleration. In Windows, that's usually buried under a setting called Enhanced Pointer Precision. Turn it off.
It just introduces inconsistency.
Total inconsistency, which is fatal for aim. Then, set your mouse to a low effective DPI, or EDPI.
Can you explain EDPI quickly for everyone?
Sure. EDPI is just your mouse's DPI setting multiplied by your in-game sensitivity. The pro sweet spot is low, usually between 560 and 1236. You get there by setting your mouse to 400 or 800 DPI, then adjusting the in-game sensitivity very carefully. It forces you to aim with your arm, which builds much more reliable muscle memory than just flicking your wrist.
And third, you don't need to spend a fortune for top performance anymore.
That's the great news. High performance is getting cheaper. For value, look at something like the wired HyperX Pulsefire Ace 2. It's light, has a great sensor, and it's around $50. Or, if you want that 8 kHz polling without the flagship price, the Keychron M78K is a fantastic option, and it's programmable through a web page, so you don't have to install any bulky software.
So we've navigated this technical arms race of 8 kHz polling and ultralight designs, and we've balanced it against the physics of the mousepad. The competitive scene is all about speed and consistency.
But as we've seen with that original G Pro X Superlight, the professional choice isn't always the newest spec on paper. Pros stick with trusted shapes for years, even when new tech promises these objective gains. And this raises a really important question for you to think about as you perfect your own setup.
What's that?
When you're choosing your gear, is the pursuit of the newest specification actually what's most important? Or should you stop optimizing once you find a reliable setup that allows your hard-earned muscle memory, your aim, to reach its absolute maximum potential? Is the perfect feel at 1,000 Hz better than a slightly compromised feel at 8,000 Hz?
That really is the core conflict of competitive gear in 2026. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.